Yeah, so I'll begin with just a kind of a mini introduction again, because it's very important to also understand where Savitri is coming from. So, just to kind of again drench us in a bit of background, and then we'll go read the lines, and then we'll ponder, and I'll share my research and contemplations about those lines, and then we can add on and infer and whatever comes to us. So, as I shared last time, when Sri Aurobindo was on Savitri, so Sri Aurobindo started with Savitri in around 19, I think around 1916 or 1910, and then it was kept on hold. So it was, it took a lot of time. 40 years he sat with Savitri. 40 years revised again and again, and when there are so many letters on Savitri available, if you are interested, you can go check online, where he says that because he himself was ascending the levels of consciousness, so whenever he rose to another level of consciousness, he rewrote the lines from that level of consciousness. And that is why he kept on revising and revising and revising the drafts of Savitri until he thought, okay, now this seems perfect. The higher consciousness that I wanted to give to these lines, this seems a perfect one, at least for now, and this is what I can settle with. So a lot of effort has gone into Savitri, and it is also considered as autobiography of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and also if one can say, it's complete human evolution, the whole transformation, yoga, everything is included in Savitri, and that is why it is considered the most important work of Sri Aurobindo, most important. And it is said that before this, all the works, like Life Divine, Synthesis of Yoga, all these are just prelude to what Savitri is. So if one just be kind of remains with Savitri, and kind of immerses in Savitri, and gives it some effort and invokes the mother, it's like, enough. It's really enough. So that is what it is, a bit of background. And also, so we went into the story of creation last time, and we saw that it's like, from the light of the supreme, its shadow came and became the inconscient. And if we really relate with our lives, we can see that when we have been in depths of darkness, we have arose with heights of consciousness. So, they are kind of parallel with each other. They are not contradictory. These shadows that we have in human beings, these are just indicators, kind of metaphorical representations of those darknesses that have been in the creation since the beginning. So when I see a shadow in myself, a dark phase in myself, that dark phase or the shadow contains a very, very high luminosity, which I am yet to discover. So one needs perseverance, one needs a lot of faith to go through those challenging periods. And then one day, something strikes, and one kind of rises above that darkness. So that is how dualities kind of merge, because then you see that, oh, then I don't have to be afraid of darkness as well, because in darkness also the same Krishna is hiding as in the light. So there is nothing to be afraid of. And this reminds me that I heard in a talk that even 100th reading of Savitri, even 100th of understanding of Savitri is enough to dispel fear from our lives. Because the kind of intensity these lines have, the kind of richness these lines have, even if you go through one page in deep depths, your fear to kind of, to die, or the fear or anxieties we have, they really kind of are dispelled away because of the light present in the lines. So again, referring to the dualities, we last time had a line we will go through again: fathomless zero. So that zero now is a shadow of the infinity. So infinity is the supreme, and zero is the shadow of the supreme. So zero is also pregnant with possibilities, because out of zero only all these numbers are coming: 0, 1, 2, 3. One ke sath zero laga do to this and this. So zero is full of possibilities, although it may look meaningless on the surface, just the face value. and just like relating it to the darkness and the light, they go just parallelly. Now, other thing about understanding Savitri, because we are given it.
Monica, sorry,
Hanji.
could you repeat the zero part once again?
Yes, yes, yes. So zero means it is said that everything began in a meaninglessness, right? So consciousness separated from the divine essence and became unconsciousness. And then it is also written in the first few lines that everything was rotating in a fathomless zero. So zero on the surface appears meaningless, as if it doesn't contain any meaning within it. But then zero is also manifesting from the divine itself. So the unconsciousness is also manifestation of the divine, although it is concealed. The divine is concealed. So in the zero is concealed several infinite possibilities, although in a different way, because when we see light or when we say infinity, it is very obvious. When we say infinity, it is very obvious that it is pregnant with possibilities, infinite possibilities. But when we say zero, it seems it's nothing. And that is how we can kind of, relate that infinity and zero are with each other and different forms of each other in a kind of a different disguise. That is what I wanted to convey, that zero is not different from infinity. It is pregnant with possibilities, but the appearance, the facade is of a zero, as if it's nothing. जो शून्य शून्य की बात करी जाती है वेदों में, I think those people who read about it, they can also relate with it, कि शून्य का कितना महत्व है, शून्यता का कितना महत्व है. So those of us who are beginning very, very new with Savitri, who are giving themselves a chance to undergo this kind of a beautiful process, there was, many people have researched and gave their contemplations on Savitri. And from one of them, I just kind of took the few lines that he was saying that if I am a double graduate, then there is a double impediment between me and Savitri. So we should not think that I am not worthy of reading Savitri, I cannot understand it, because the more qualified I am, the more bar or a wall of kind of, my ego comes between me and Savitri, because I am kind of occupied in my mind and the logic of the mind and the reason of the mind, while Savitri is coming from the overmind, maybe from the supermind. So I don't need my own mind to understand Savitri. I just need a calm receptacle, a very calm and a still mind, and which can be brought about by a deep faith in the mother's guidance, that yes, mother is with me and she is giving me the power to go through these lines. Just that kind of a faith is enough. And then he further says that you just need grace of the divine to open yourself to Savitri. Nothing less will do. This is what he says. And also the lines of the Savitri, they have been called as mantric lines. They are mantra in itself, because the consciousness is so strong in these lines. And that is why mother has said that you don't need to understand it. Just sit with the lines, maybe chant the lines, read aloud when you are alone. Or what I am nowadays doing, which is really, I'm finding it very beautiful. I'm just writing these lines, It's really beautiful. I think those of us who are fond of writing, just sit with one page and write these lines, and something new comes up and you develop a new intimacy with the lines. Yeah. So one very interesting thing, again, continuing with the background. So it is said that the major works of Sri Aurobindo were completed from 1914 to 1920. And in the time of 1931 to 34, he said that I have no time for Savitri. Because when his devotees, disciples were asking him, when will we complete this? Because they were helping with the drafting and writing and rewriting. So he said, I have no time for Savitri. And the world was wondering, people who knew him, what is he absorbed with? So later on, it was released that when the whole of India was concerned that when will India be free of this slavery from the Britishers, and in the 20th century, when the Western literature was full of despair about the human condition, what is this pathetic human condition we are in, and maybe the best philosophical question is to ask is how to end life. These were the things that were being discussed in Western literature. At that time, Sri Aurobindo was really delved delving deeply in kind of his own exploration how to make man free of this misery. So he was not much bothered about, obviously he was having a complete eye on the movements in India, freedom movement as well, but he was more concerned about when will man be free, and that is what he was kind of occupied with during this time. And through Savitri, through his ascension of consciousness, and through the ascension of consciousness, what he kind of reflected through Savitri, he gave man vibrations of love, vibrations of hope. Because without love and without hope and faith in the divine, nothing can move, nothing can change. So through Savitri, he gave us the golden bridge, and the golden bridge is the book Savitri plus the Divine Mother Savitri, as is revealed in the book. So I would like you to read these lines. Anyone of you can kind of, you know, 1 minute. Any one of you can come up and say, I want to read. I'm just kind of pointing it out in the PDF of Savitri, and then I'll ask you to read. So it's about Mother, the Divine Mother. She is the golden bridge. Let me find out. And then I can share the screen with you. Luminous heart. Can't find it. Okay. In that case, I'll just read it aloud by myself, and maybe you can join later. So this is what is said, Book 3, Canto 2. Can you find it? Do you have it with you, the PDF? Book 3, Canto 2. If you can reach it. So we are really kind of jumping. We are going to Book 3. Have you find it?
Page 310.
Beautiful.
In case somebody
343
is.
side में 314 पे जाना जरा 314
14 or 40?
314 and try to find this line. She is the golden bridge.
Yeah, I found it, Monica.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it.
Taru, you want to read it, or Reggie, you want to read it?
I can. It's fine. Either way.
Or maybe Taru goes first.
No, actually, I couldn't find it, so Reggie can go first while I
Okay,
find it.
Reggie, if you have found it, just go ahead.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Sure. Where do you want me to read from? The Luminous Heart?
I want to read. I want you to read from "She is the golden bridge" to the lines
Okay.
like around 10 lines. The might of all that never yet came down. So this is
Okay,
the
sure.
description of the Divine Mother. Yeah.
Right. She is the golden bridge, the wonderful fire. The luminous heart of the unknown is she, the power of silence in the depths of God. She is the force, the inevitable word, the magnet of our difficult ascent, the sun from which we kindle our suns, the light that leans from the unrealized vast, the joy that beckons from the impossible, the might of all that never yet came down.
Yeah. So see, this is the description of the Divine Mother or the Savitri. And why is it important? Because in every conversation nowadays, you may be observing that I say that, just keep on holding to the mother. Do not leave the mother's presence as much as possible. So this is the reason. She is the golden bridge between the inconscient and the divine, if I can say. She is the one who will be helping us to kind of climb the rungs of the ladder and to ultimately do the yoga. Yoga is the unification of us with the divine. So kind of shedding of the wheels of ignorance. And she is the golden bridge here, referring to Savitri as well, Savitri or the divine mother, because there is no difference. The luminous heart of the unknown is she. Now this is referring to the supreme from which all the manifestation has come. A power of silence in the depths of God. She is the force with a capital F. She is the force, the inevitable word. Now, why inevitable? Because all the movements that are happening on earth ultimately reach her. I'll again show you a picture where mother has shown that no matter what path you take, you will be reaching the divine ultimately. The only thing is that if you collaborate, then the path is easy and smooth. Otherwise, even if you kind of resist, keep on resisting, ultimately the result, we all have the same destiny. The destiny is to merge in the divine, because that is our source and that is the origin, and that is there only, that is, nothing else exists than the divine. So the destiny is the same for all of us, but it depends on what kind of a path we want to kind of use. Okay. Thanks, Saru. I'll speak slowly. So I'm showing you a picture where mother has shown two possibilities for us. I'll put my video on for that, where mother shows that there is a direct path to the goal, which is the supreme, and then there is a wavy path. So with surrender, the path becomes direct. So let me just start the video and then I'll show you. Am I visible? I can't see myself.
I think you'll have to disable screen share maybe.
Okay. Stop sharing. Okay. Is it okay now? Can you see the image that I'm holding?
Yeah, I can see now, but it keeps moving. I think we'll have to pin you, and I don't know how to do that on Skype. So
Okay, let me try to do that. Speaker view. I've done speaker view, so it must be kind of showing me.
now, yeah, for me now you are there.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can see
Can
it.
you see this part?
Yes, we can see it, Monica.
Yes, yes. So, the line in the middle, the straight vertical line, goes from our present condition to the goal, which is the divine. And the wavy path is also a possibility, which again goes to the divine. But yeah, I'm not visible. The book is visible, Shreya. I hope you can see the book. Even that is not visible. Okay. Interesting. I'll try to just capture this
Shreya, you
picture.
will have to rotate between the screen, like the speaker view, and the place where you are putting the messages and all. There are different screens on Skype.
I wish I had a better way to show this to you. What I'll do is I'll make a picture with my phone and then I'll share it as well on the WhatsApp group. So this is the path. I hope it's clear to us that it's totally on our free will at what point of life, a phase in life, we are ready to surrender and collaborate with the mother, with the divine, so that it's easier for all of us. It becomes easier for even people with whom we are living. We become less of a botheration for them. you know yeah. Okay, thank you, Taru. That's really nice. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead. If there are anything in between, just feel free to kind of stop in between or tell me what to do. Yeah. So this is what Sri Aurobindo did through Savitri. He gave us the kind of a golden bridge through which we can move smoothly and fast in a faster way, collaborating
Uh,
rather than resisting.
Monica, if I may, I
Yes.
was yesterday hearing something on Upanishads, like I don't remember the name of it, Upanishad, in which basically it was Acharya Ji's talk, and he was talking about Savita and Savitri. So
Hmm.
Savita means the sun, and Savitri means like Surya ki Shakti, like the power of the sun.
Hmm.
And he said ki in Vedas, whenever we, use these words, Savita and Savitri, we obviously do not mean the actual physical sun that we see, because that sun is just a star, right? But
Hmm.
it's basically the symbolism that it is
Yes.
something around which the whole world, like your world and all the world, the universe, is revolving. So
Yeah.
the thing that is sourcing everything would be the sun, and then the power of the sun.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And it's also said that Savitri is called the Usha, or the dawn, when the sun is not very kind of bright, that phase. And then there is another form which is Surya Savitri, which is the brightest form. So it is also said in few talks that we slowly become ready for Surya Savitri. We are not ready. For example, if we are sleeping and suddenly a very, very bright sun appears, then we'll not be able to look at the sun, and our eyes will be kind of resisting to look at it. So that is how we go about it, that it is very, very slow procession that we take our lives through. So first is the dawn, and that is why this book begins with the dawn. And as you rightly said, that it is representing the divine around which everything is rotating, not like what ego thinks that around me everything is rotating. So God is the center, and God is the origin, and God is that there is only, the only thing, the adanga that becomes in between is I becomes the adanga. If we actually just kind of put aside the I, then we see that actually मेरा तो कोई काम ही नहीं है. उसी का खेल है और उसी ने करना है. We just become a adanga, and the easiest way we can go about it is surrender, and that is taking out the adanga and letting the divine things complete their course of evolution, as it has to go anyway. So yes, Surya Savitri. Yes, Savitri is also, I think, a name for Surya, Taru, if I'm not wrong, right? That is what you said.
Yes.
So yeah, and Sri Aurobindo also gave a mantra, Gayatri mantra. Uh, he kind of formed it. So there is one Gayatri mantra which we all know, and then there is another one which focuses on the aspect of Savitri, or the Divine Mother, which is said, Om Tat Savitur Varam Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yannah Satten Deepayet. So it's like focusing on the most brightest or illumined form of the Divine Mother, which is Savitri. So it's also called Savitri Mantra, Gayatri Mantra from Sri Aurobindo. Yeah. So let's go on further. Now, this the first thing is what I want to tell you is that Savitri will be kind of going on parallelly on three levels. So we don't have to get confused. It's parallelly also referring to the physical manifestation. Parallelly, it's also referring to the story of Savitri and Satyavan, and also of a cosmic unfolding. So at three levels, Savitri is kind of happening. And we will see that how many lines we can relate to our own direct human lives, because it is our story. It's not something else. Savitri is our story. Satyavan is my soul. Satyavan is no one else but my human soul, which has plunged itself into the darkness. Now, what is the darkness? Darkness is all these patterns, all these tendencies, unconscious patterns, they keep on ruling our life. We don't even realize what is running our life. So this is the unconsciousness that runs our life. So the soul, which has the divine power, which has the divine potential, after plunging into the inconscient, it had forgotten what it is capable of. And why Savitri comes as a saving grace for Satyavan? in the story. So Satyavan is now dead, and Savitri has to resurrect Satyavan. She goes ahead to say, no, I am not going to give up. It's my mission to resurrect Satyavan. Why? Because it is divine whose play it is. And it's the divine only who will take the soul, the ansh from the divine, the soul, back to the original source, or the Surya, which is the symbol of the divine. So in fact, later on, you will also see that supermind, when they refer to the supermind, so above the overmind, it's the supermind. So when Mother and Sri Aurobindo say that ultimately supramental manifestation has to appear, which means something really beautiful, something directly of the divine origin. So supermind is also a kind of symbolic image for the sun and relating it with the divine. So Savitri will be happening at 3 parallel levels. As I said, physical plane, an inner kind of a journey, our soul's journey, and the cosmic unfolding. And you don't have to bother it at all, bother about understanding it. It will be revealed to us as we go through the lines. Now, if you just go to the first page and see the author's note, if one of you can find it in the PDF, try to find the author's note in the PDF. I'll also share the screen for that. Which is written by Sri Aurobindo himself. And I would like some of you or any one of you to read this author's note. I've also shared on the screen if you want to read it from here.
Read it.
Yeah, Reggie, you have to be a bit louder because your voice
Sure.
today is not that clear. Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Not very well. Yeah, are you there? Reggie?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, better, much better.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so the tale of Satyavan and Savitri is recited in the Mahabharata as the story of conjugal love conquering death. But this legend is, as shown by many features of the human tale, one of the many symbolic myths of the Vedic cycle. Satyavan is the soul carrying the divine truth of the being within itself, but descended into the grip of death and ignorance. Savitri is the divine word, daughter of the sun, goddess of the supreme truth, who comes down and is born to save Ashwapati, the lord of the horse. Her human father is the lord of tapasya, the concentrated energy of spiritual endeavor that helps us to rise from the mortal to immortal planes. Dyumatsena, lord of the shining hosts, father of Satyavan, is the divine mind, here fallen blind, losing its celestial kingdom of vision, and through that loss, its kingdom of glory. Still, this is not mere allegory. The characters are not personified qualities, but incarnations or emanations of living and conscious forces with whom we can enter into concrete touch, and they take human bodies in order to help man and show him the way from his mortal state to a divine consciousness and an immortal life.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is, in short, Sri Aurobindo telling us the characters, that are there. And if you are, I'm sure you are all able to, Savitri is within me. Okay? Ashwapati, the lord of horse, the lord of tapasya, the concentrated energy of spiritual endeavor, it's a part of me. Dyumat Sena, the lord of shining hosts, father of Satyavan, is the divine mind, here fallen blind, losing its celestial kingdom of the vision. This is also me. So all this is nothing but my own story, and that is why we must read Savitri. Satyavan. Now, what is Satyavan? Satyavan is very much my own soul, which is not aware of its potential, the divine capacities that I am born for. And sometimes a whole lifetime goes by and I am not aware of anything but my mortal existence. And that is the reason why more and more of us who are ready should be kind of, immersing in Savitri. Now, just using these two words, conjugal love. So, if you look the dictionary meaning of conjugal, it means married or wedded. So, the word conjugal appears when we have a married relationship. One has a married relationship with each other, like joint together. And why is it used here? Because Satyavan is the human soul. It's me, my soul. Savitri is the divine mother or the supreme, the aspect of the supreme. And my soul is not separate from Savitri. And that is why conjugal love. Because as if we are wedded with the divine. No matter how hard we may resist, for centuries we may resist, we are wedded, and no one can deny it, because that is the reason of our restlessness, our seeking, that we never kind of satiate our desires and attachments. We never get settled, somehow. And that is the very reason why we don't get settled, because unless we kind of do the unification of these two, settlement is not possible. And actual life, the real life, actually begins, if I can say the real life, because now the human evolution has reached that stage that the divine should manifest in more and more acts, in more and more ways on the earth consciousness, and not just wallowing in the darkness or inconscient or all the negativity. Although negativity also had its own purpose, just like asuras, when they came, for example, asura of unconsciousness, asura of suffering. All these asuras have their own need in the evolution, but at certain stage, after that they have to leave the room and let the divine enter in the other form, in the form of luminosity, so that the evolution can be kind of carried on. They are not here to stay forever, the darknesses. There is another kind of a creation that is to come. Now that brings me to the uh, symbol dawn. And through symbol dawn, Savitri is the dawn. Savitri is the Usha, or the new creation. She is the bringer of illumination. Savitri here is the bringer of a new race, that yes, I will bring a new race where death can be conquered. She is not accepting death and suffering. She is challenging death. And the power that she has is the power of love, that is directly coming down from the divine. And that is why she is so confident of herself, because she is not, she doesn't have a veil between herself and her divine origin, like most of us have, that we are ready to believe if someone says that you are stupid. But we are not ready to believe if someone says, hey, you are divine, come on, wake up. And that is the inconscient we are immersed in, we are submerged in. So Savitri has a very strong remembrance of her own divine origin, and she then, as we will see slowly, she remembers the mission for what she has come down upon earth, which is to get out the human soul from the plunge of darkness, which was the part of the first creation, and which was also necessary because it was a part of a divine play. So further, just kind of pinpointing or maybe hinting at involution and evolution for those of us who are new today, or maybe last time I did not elaborate much. So what is involution? Involution is when the divine becomes sukshma. It's as if, just like Hanuman had the power of becoming extremely small and hiding himself anywhere. So just like that, when the divine hides himself in the darkness, it's called involution. So in the asuras also, the divine is hiding. That is involution. In the stone also, divine is hiding. In a dog, in a plant, in any life form, or in a non-life inanimate form, God is hiding. That is involution. And what is evolution? Evolution begins when this hiding becomes to kind of come forth, and it becomes to appear out more strongly from the matter, so that now it can take over and merge back to the divine essence from which it has come. So this is the whole cyclical kind of manifestation which has been going on and on and on since I don't know when, you know. So these evolutions, these kind of manifestations from the divine, they have been a kind of a long story. It's not that it just started with humans and will end with humans. So it has been a long story and it goes on and on. So further, very interesting part that I want to just kind of leave you with, because I think it's very beautiful. So there are missing links between how life came into existence. So first there were unicellular animals, in the sense that there was only one atom. If you read in science, there was this algae, protozoa, single celled organisms. From them came plants, and then slowly animals, and then slowly human beings. So it is very kind of mysterious that and I'm not going to share any answers. It's for you of all of you who are interested, just go and find out about him themselves. From atom to plant, from unicellular organism to the plant form, there is a missing link. So we don't know what was the missing link between atom and plant. What was the missing creature that came between the transition between atom and plant? Just like that, we don't know what came as a transition between plant and animal. So was there any state where half plant, half animal was there? We don't know about that. And then there was also a missing link, which I think you can find online as well, that there was a missing link between animal and human form. So apes and humans also have a missing link in between. And till now, as far as I am aware, or in my knowledge, we have not been able to figure out what these missing links were. There are no traces of that. And mother has been saying that it is not the first time I have manifested. I have been manifesting since the time creation is there. So these missing links are supposedly the parts where divine manifested in another form immediately, like without any evolution in between. So like just like a, I give you a stone, tuck, and another species arrives. So there is no continuation between the two species. So this I just found interesting, so I thought I will share with you. Yeah. So that's the introduction, and I think now we can go ahead with the first few lines. Just go to the first half. The Symbol Dawn, Canto 1, Book 1. And we'll take it very, very slowly. Like I would like you, any one of you, to read the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, first 5 lines.
Monica, sorry, I have a question.
Ji.
What is that, the missing link? Is that particularly called something?
Yes, Shreya, you can read. Let me just finish with the question. Reggie, can you go again?
That link that is missing, that transmutation that happens through the divine. Is Is that process called something specifically?
Actually, I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
And if you kind of come to know, then share with us too.
Okay.
Because for now in my research until now, I just got to know that there have been missing links, and
Right.
even science has no knowledge about how to kind of connect the dots. What was
Okay.
there in the time of this missing link? Yeah, they have no idea. And according to the mother, these missing links were there specifically because the divine kind of showered suddenly a new species just to speed up the evolution.
Right.
Yeah,
So
kind
neither
of
neither
more
side.
more yeah, more horsepower came, and that gave rise to another species more conscious in evolution altogether. Yes, what were you saying?
I was saying, so neither does science, and even the mother doesn't have a specific terminology for that
No, mother,
little.
mother maybe has given some specific terminology, but what the word I came across was missing link, nothing
Okay.
else.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Priya, maybe you can read these first 5 lines.
Okay. It was the hour before the gods awake. Across the path of the divine event, the huge foreboding mind of night, alone in her unlit temple of eternity.
Yes, Shreya, maybe you can complete until the full stop, the last line as well.
Lay stretched, immobile, upon silence march.
Yes. So again, as I said, this will be happening on parallel levels. First is the physical happening, the arrival of the sun. So when sun begins to arrive, first dawn comes, like neither dark nor very bright, a kind of a middle way, neither this nor that. So it is referring to that kind of a part of physical existence also, when the gods are not yet awake. Now, this is also referring to the second level of creation, where we saw that in the second level of creation, where the rungs of the ladder were created, there gods came into existence in the second creation. Gods did not come into the in the first creation. In the first creation, asuras came, the asura of unconsciousness, asura of death, asura of suffering, asura of falsehood. And then it is parallelly referring to all these states, and we'll be picking up whatever is coming on our way. It was the hour before the gods awake. So also referring to those phases in our lives where darkness is there and a gleam of light is visible, but the gods are not yet awake. In the sense, the illumination has not dawned upon in my life. The darkness is still going on. That hour, that phase. Across the path of the divine event. Now, what is the event? Event is, first of all, the creation is an event. That is why capital E, because creation keeps on happening and happening and happening. Creation is not a one-time event. Across the path of divine event, the other event that it is referring to is that after, so the once the sun rises, Satyavan is going to die this day. That is another divine event which this is referring to. So Satyavan will die today and he will be resurrected. That is the divine event. Now what is happening? Uh, just a second. So at the same time, when abhi kya hai, the situation is that darkness is there, a gleam of light is visible in the form of the mild sun that is there. Before the gods awake means illumination has not yet completely dawned. And now, as the Supreme prepares for this divine event, what is happening? Across the path of the divine event, the huge foreboding mind of night alone. Now, this is referring, imagine that you are on your path to create something, and a big stumbling block comes your way, and it is lying stretched on the road, saying, I am not going to let you go. I am not going to let you create what you want to create. And this is what the darkness is doing. It is lying stretched, as it says in the next line, lay stretched immobile upon silence's march. So as long as one can see, the night has taken, as if it has done a kabza, it has occupied all the space, that I am not going to let this happen. And this is what asuras, the fight between the devas and the asuras, because asuras say, this is our kingdom, and Dev says, the gods say, no, we are we are to be here, and we are the bringers of illumination. Now asuras are not ready to move. Asuras are not ready to move because they think that the creation belongs to them. It is us who came first. Why should we hand it over to you, the gods? So that is what is happening. Now the creation is asking for something new to happen, and the unconscious forces that have already come into existence because of the first creation, they are not ready to move now. They think it's our domain. Now related with your life, whenever these phases appear in our life where we read a word, maybe we get in touch with a guru or a mystic, or we come across a book, we come across a happening in life where a light, gleam of light appears, that yes, something is going to change now. I will be out of my darkness. Then what happens? All our past life, in the sense the life I have lived until now, it keeps on pulling me down. It says, no, you cannot have a new life because I am the one who rules your life. These unconscious patterns, these tendencies, the kind of a rut or monotone of life that I have kind of overwhelmed myself with, they now are not ready to leave, because they say that, how can you leave me now? You cannot have a new life. Why will you leave me in darkness? You belong to me. I belong to my unconscious patterns. And that is the urge of the inconscient, that it is not ready to leave. The dark night now is not ready to leave. And that is why it is said, this, if you focus on these words, across, it's not letting the creation happen. It's lying across the path, not parallel to the path. Across the path of the divine event, the huge foreboding mind of night in capital, because it's dense darkness. No illumination has come so far. Alone, darkness is that only is. In her unlit temple of eternity. So no illumination yet has arrived in that darkness. Lay stretched, immobile. Immobile matlab it's not ready to move. It's saying, no, you cannot create a new manifestation. It belongs to me. The world belongs to me. Then further, I would like one of you to read until this fathomless zero occupied the world.
I can go.
Yes.
Almost one felt opaque, impenetrable, in the sober symbol of her eyeless muse. The abyss of the unbodied infinite, a fathomless zero occupied the world.
Yeah. So this is again referring to at parallel dimensions. This is also referring to the time when it's around 3 a.m. or so, when we are still in our sleep and we are not ready to move. We are still in the tamas of the body, and we are not. The body is not ready ready to move yet. The dark, it's full of those energies, the dark energies, and kind of tamas, inertia of not readying to move oneself. And again, you will see more these words, because this is all symbolic representation to kind of represent that darkness, opaque, impenetrable, that kind of a darkness, opaque, as if nothing else is visible after the curtain. The curtain has become so thick, opaque, impenetrable, as if nothing can pierce it. In the somber symbol of her eyeless, because it does not have a consciousness yet. The consciousness has become unconscious, so there is no knowledgeful vision, and that is why eyeless. The abysm of the unbodied infinite. Now no forms have yet appeared. The forces are in play, the occult forces are in play, the forms have not yet appeared. At the parallel dimension, it is also referring to the cosmic unfolding, the how the evolution came into existence, how the universe has come into existence. A fathomless zero. Now a zero, but which is fathomless. Now again, this is equivalent to the infinity from which it is coming. When you say fathomless, then again it is going towards infinity, because you don't know the depths. And if you relate also with our personal lives, the more we plunge into the depths of our own being, which we can say shunya, because it's dark inside, the more you see that it's actually infinite depths, fathomless depths. There would be no one day when you will see, okay, I have touched the bottom of my depths. And that is the beauty. The more we go within, the more we come without. So the heights of the divine and the depths of the shunya are equivalent to each other. There is no difference. Only the appearance is different. So let me just focus here upon, this thing. Lay stretched upon, immobile upon silence march. Now, I think it will be very, very important for all of us to focus how I can relate with this, my personal life. Whenever dawn comes or appears in our life, there are so many words that we go throughout the day. There are so many talks that we listen to. But again and again, we are pulled as if in this magnetic trance of the inconscient, the patterns, the tendencies, how life must go, the old ideas of me. And no matter how powerful that word was, because that word that I read today actually brought with itself the light of the divine. And that is why I got so attracted towards it. But the pull of the inconscient is so strong that again, I have to, kind of forget it. Because all the tendencies and patterns come rising up as if lay stretched, immobile, not ready to leave you. And they say, I am not going to let you create a new life for yourself. So this is how we can relate it to our own life, that how a gleam of light comes to our life in daily moments, but we keep on ignoring it, we keep on neglecting it, and also because of the pull of the unconscient. Yes. And sometimes we also say, I don't know why I did what I did. I'm sure all of us must have gone through these phases in life where we think that, I don't know why I got into that trap. I don't know what pulled me into that trap. And there lies the illumination. Because yes, we don't know, because these are the patterns, unconscious patterns, robotic patterns, mechanical patterns that are ruling our lives. What is needed is a conscious light full of attention. And when you give, okay, I am ready to look at these patterns, because I must know where my patterns are arising from. Who else will know if not me? The moment you are ready to give it attention, you see that the whole idea behind that pattern is revealed to you. It cannot be that it does not get revealed by the fierce light of your attention, the kind of a burning from your attention. So this is the gleam that comes in the form of Usha in the hour before the actual sun has arisen. That is the dawn. And further going, yeah, just let me have a look if I'm not missing anything. Now there is a strong refusal from the night. That night in capitals that we read, this one, the night. There is a strong refusal. And stay with this line, how when something new arrives in our life, how strongly we resist it. How strongly we say, no, I feel I am not ready for it. These are the excuses that we give ourselves. I feel I'm not ready for Savitri. This can be actually a nice excuse just to follow my own patterns or and tendencies. Just because something in me says I am fine as I am, a little bit of struggle here and there. It's okay, more or less I'm fine. So this is the strong refusal. In fact, I would like to share that when we were preparing these posters, uh, one of my friends, suggested that instead of register, why don't you say join? Because registration seems like a process, as if I have to undergo a process to join these sessions. And the tamas, the inertia of the old patterns is not ready to register. It says, no, registration will be a long process. I am better in my old domains. So this is the strong hold of the tamas that brings us daily down and down, no matter how many words we read full of illumination. And that is why Ashwapati, the Lord of Tapasya, that is why it is needed in our life, more and more burning, more and more kind of putting ahutis as if you are doing a yagna of life. So each progress in our life becomes, or the beginning of a progress in our life is refusal. And that is why even when marriages happen, many a times when we see a boy proposes a girl or a girl proposes a man, we see that many a times the first step is refusal. I say no to it. I'm not ready for it. So the path of the progress becomes, the beginning is the refusal. So night says, I am not ready to move. Okay. And then slowly, a yes comes. And Sri Aurobindo in one of his poems, or I think sonnets, says, a limping yes and a recurrent everlasting no. So again and again we say, no, I'm not yet ready for the session, or I'm not ready to, live a life which is life divine. I think I'm not worthy enough. So a everlasting no and a limping yes. But somewhere in, if I check within my being, somewhere कोई एक हल्की सी want भी रहती है कि हाँ मुझे चलना तो चाहिए ये path, but वो it is overtaken by that mighty no that keeps on kind of recurring itself. So we must realize that the progress becomes the progress begins with refusal, and we don't have to be bothered about our own refusals. The thing is that after refusal, progress must continue. I must say at least a limping yes to the new dawn that is being shown to me. And also, I would like to relate it with the practical happenings of life. So, for example, when I am struck with cancer or a disease, or a very, very tragic happening in my life, maybe I lose someone in my life, the first is a denial. The first step is a refusal. I don't want to accept that something like this has happened. A disease has happened. A person has been lost from my life. So the first step is refusal. And all the events, all the creation, all the progress in life begins with this resistance, owing to the inherent tamas in the matter, the inherent inconscient that we are made of. Because the first creation was made of that inconscient, that darkness, that tamas. So it's okay. It's just a phase that my life is going through. Yes. Yeah. Let's go ahead. So in the somber symbol of her eyeless muse, we already discussed that it's referring to that blindness that is still there, the abysm of the unbodied infinite. So the subconscient in us or the unconsciousness in us is formless. No, there is no unconscient being in me. It is not a proper form that it has. Unbodied infinite. So it's a kind of a wavy state. There is not yet a proper formation. A fathomless zero occupied the world. So as we discussed last time, utter meaningless. Why meaningless? Because it's purely mechanical. The first happenings that came through, for example, if we go to the Big Bang Theory, the first was a mighty force which kind of made everything move. So all the asteroids, all the kind of planetary pieces are moving in the space on and on blindly in their mechanical movement, and that is our own origin as well. So somewhere we have that memory of that origin, that mechanical subconscious movement, and this is also referring to these movements. For example, if you go out, you don't have to remind yourself the way back to your home. It's embedded in mechanical memory, in a subconscious memory. For that you don't need to think. So that is what subconscious memory is, that you get up, take a bath. It's very, very ingrained within. It has become part of my, as if my body remembers it. A power of okay, now we have to read further. So if someone of you can read from a power to vacant not. Anyone? राधना जी आप पढ़ सकती हैं अगर आज आपने अभी तक पढ़ा नहीं है.
Okay, Monica. A power of fallen, boundless self awake, between the first and the last nothingness, recalling the tenebrous womb from which it came, turned from this insoluble mystery of birth and the tardy process of mortality, and longed to reach its end in vacant not.
Thank you. So, a power of fallen, boundless self. Now, this is together fallen, boundless self. This is together, Boundless self bhi hai, but fallen. Fallen into the traps of the inconscient, the ignorance. What is the ignorance? Ignorance is that I am separate, I am something else, I am abandoned. And relate it with your life as much as you can. This is our story, that I am abandoned. Some part of us still believes strongly in this thing, that I am abandoned, and maybe there might be a God, but it is somewhere far away. This belief that we strongly hold in our lives. A power of fallen, boundless self awake. Now, what is happening? Dawn is arising. It's also referring to the physical dawn. सन उग रहा है, धीरे धीरे सन आ रहा है, और धीरे धीरे मेरे में कुछ हिल भी रहा है, as if some stirring is happening. A power of fallen, boundless self. Now that self is coming from the infinite itself, from the Brahman, from the Supreme. Now that portion within me starts to get awake. Between the first and the last nothingness. Now this is referring to the nothingness that was in the beginning, and also the nothingness that ensues later when everything is merged back. So some part in our being knows that we are here, and it is not for this nothingness that I am here. It is not for this mechanical movement that I am here. Something in us knows. The only thing is that we become ready only slowly through experiences in our life to accept that yes, there is something else I am born for. Most of the life, or even lives, we spend in a mechanical routine. When I am ready to sense that feeble voice within me, this fallen, boundless self awake. It is referring to that portion in me which knows what is my reason of existence, what is the purpose of my existence. Now, what is that doing? It is remembering also the nothingness from which it came. So there is a very, very strong memory of that inconscient or darkness. And that is why, that is the very, very reason that we are pulled back into our own schedules, no matter we know what is important for me. The schedules pull us every day. Every day they pull us. What is it doing, this self-awake? Recalling the tenebrous womb from which it came. Now it is remembering that darkness from which it came. And that is why the strong belief in darkness, that yes, I am dark. I cannot be divine. I cannot be divine in existence. I cannot be worthy. Why? Because the origin is in darkness. And the beauty is, the more I stay with the darkness, the more I delve into the darkness, light is revealed to me. So staying with the darkness or immersing in the darkness is not same as believing in the darkness. I hope it's clear. What we do is that we make it a belief that yes, I am dark and I cannot be nothing else. I am kind of worthless and I cannot be nothing else. But once you begin to stay with that ugliness, that darkness within, you see that it is nothing but a facade of the light. So what is that boundless self which is now getting awake doing? It is recalling the tenebrous womb, that darkness, that pregnant darkness. Look at how a child is created. A child is created in darkness. So darkness is a part of our evolution. Darkness is very important for seeding, for sprouting. But after the sprouting has happened, then darkness has no other purpose. Rather, the only purpose of darkness then would be to stay rooted. Can you see that? The roots are in darkness. If the darkness is not there, where will I ground myself? So for grounding, darkness is important. It has its own importance. But then once the sprout is out, it has only one thing to do: look towards the light. It has to reach out for the light. Look at all the plants and the nature, what it does. It reaches out, the branches become longer and longer in order to reach the light. If we go look at dense forests, we see that in dense forests the stalks of the trees are even longer because they are reaching out for the divine. So this reaching out is something that we as human beings have inherently with us, because we are very much a part of that nature of which forests or plants are also a part. A forest is not different from me. The material is the same, the longing is the same. So this longing, and that is why longing has been given such a special importance in the lives of mystics. As Baba Farid says, Birha tu Sultan, longing you are the king. Because if this longing we kill in our life, then the life is as good as ash, as good as dead. So this very special longing which gives us pain also, which gives us suffering also, but it is the very reason which joins us back, removing the wheel of the bondage and ignorance, joins us back to the divine essence within. So that is what is happening. It is recalling the darkness also, turned from the insoluble mystery. Now, why this insoluble mystery? Because look at us human beings. For us, our existence is still a mystery. No, we don't know the purpose of our being in existence. So this is our insoluble mystery. Even little kids, sometimes they ask, why am I born? And we have no answer because we ourselves don't know why are we born. And the tardy process of mortality. Now, what is happening in the tardy process? Tardy means very delayed, very slow process. Now, nature, Prakriti, is doing evolution, because nature is a part of the divine, Purush Prakriti. Nature's pace is a very, very slow pace. It takes its own time. It has eternity in hand. We human beings have not much time in hand, if we can say that. So so as I showed you that in the other picture, where mother has said that, you know, there is a straight path and then there is a zigzag path. So nature takes that zigzag path. If, for example, I am a person who is not yet ready to surrender, who is not yet ready to live a divine life, it doesn't matter. I will be given hits and blows and hits and blows, if not in this life, maybe next life. Nature. But the path can be straight and direct if I take the other process of merging with the divine. So the tardy process of mortality is also referring to the soul in evolution, which began as a stone, then plant and animal and apes and human beings. Now, how slow this process is. Look at your own life, you know, how slow a process. First, I have to be a stone, then I have to be a plant, then I have to be, you know, animal, and then I have to be developing a mind as a human being. Then in human being, I have to be taking several births before I can have a conscious mind where a consciousness is kind of lit up and it says, okay, you know, it seems like it's divine adventure and I have to get out of the way. So that is the process of mortality, you know, dying again and then taking birth again in order to renew ourselves. If you have any question at this point, maybe you can share. Yeah. So again, focusing on the recalling of the tenebrous womb. Now, when I see a light in myself, and I know that this is the mantra I should be having for my life if I really want to live an illumined life, I slip again and again. Now, what is this slip? What is this lack of vigilance, if I can say? Kabir has said, you know, that you have to be on guard until you die, until you leave the body. What is this vigilance that is required? Now, this vigilance is required only because of the darkness of the womb from which I am coming, the inconscience, the subconscious patterns that rule my life, and that is why the vigilance is required. So we have a tendency to fall back again and again into our own patterns of existence. And that is why the importance of Satsangat. Because what is Satsangat doing? Satsangat is it trying to pull you again and again from the inconscient. So I am taking 10 steps further up and then I am getting pulled 8 steps down. This is how our process it. But it's okay because it is a process. Now the thing is, what happens when Divine Mother enters our life? When Mother enters the life, we can all have a very higher consciousness when we are sitting in meditation. The thing is that the muck that pulls me, that has to get transformed. And in Savitri, when Savitri is able to transform death, when death reminds, you know, see, I am full of inconscient, I am full of darkness, how can you, you know, slay me? And Savitri says, you are telling the truth, but you are telling the truth in a way which is appearing very deceptive. Inconscient is the truth, but the divine is also hiding in the inconscient. So you are saying only half truth. Death, this is the dialogue between Savitri and death. And then death says, you know, then show me your true essence, show me your true roop, if I can say. And then Savitri reveals to death, and after that, death transforms into light after seeing the Divine Mother manifest in front of him as Savitri. So this darkness that we get pulled into again and again, this is our task in integral yoga, of the path that Sri Aurobindo and Mother have shown very clearly to us, that this darkness has to get transformed. We don't have to leave the darkness as it is, कि नाली गंदी पड़ी रहे और तुम कहीं आगे निकल जाओ, you know, अमेरिका या कनाडा, और इंडिया को गंदा छोड़ जाओ. Not like that. You know, stay with the drain. touch the light more and more and shed that light, the force of that light, shed that intensity of that light in that darkness also, because in darkness also hides the Krishna. So darkness is deceptive. Yeah. So this process of mortality that we are referring to, the tardy process of mortality, it's a very painfully slow process. It's a very, very slow process of of evolution, and that is why I'm sure most of you have heard why human birth is considered so precious by mystics all around the world. Kabir kind of said again and again, repeated in all the dohas, don't waste this human life. हीरा लाल ढूंढ लावे, अपने अंदर से हीरा निकाल लाओ, ये ह्यूमन जन्म मिला है और कहीं मत इधर उधर वेस्ट करो. थक 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 गए बोल बोल के. हर दोहे में ऑलमोस्ट इन इनडायरेक्ट फॉर्म ही सेज that don't waste this precious human life. And why should we not waste this precious human life? Because this is the adventure that we wanted. All of us have consciously plunged into this adventure of human evolution, and we have forgotten. Now this forgetting is also very important, otherwise we will be remembering all the burdens of the deeds of the past, right? So if I have committed a murder in the past life, or I have been raped in the past life, because that is also one experience that I wanted to go through. Imagine that if you still have those memories, they will not let you live. So this is the very purpose of forgetting, that so that we don't have that burden with us in the present life, and we can start afresh. Now the only thing that is happening is that I'm still carrying the burdens of my desires, attachments, past tendencies, either from this birth or the previous birth. This is what is happening. And this is what I have to kind of wake myself up to. I have to kind of get conscious of the patterns that run me, so that the past karma or the past burden now doesn't bother me, now doesn't have the capacity to rule me. And only then can I shed the veil between myself and my divine essence. And then only a new life emerges. उससे पहले तो पुरानी लाइफ ही चल रही है अभी तक. सारी टेंडेंसीज हमको जी रही हैं, रोबोटिक मैनिपुलेशंस हमको जी रही हैं. हमने अभी जीना शुरू नहीं किया है. And that is why the importance of human life. Yeah. So further, and so just shortly on the last line, and longed to reach its end in a vacant knot. Now this is again referring to the tenebrous womb from which it came. So what is happening? The pull of the inconscient is so strong that I want to kind of, I get pulled again and again in that vacant knot, that emptiness. I get sucked in that mechanical routine, the process, the darkness. And that is why these suicides, that the pull of inconscient is so strong, the darkness becomes so overwhelming, that even the sun, poor sun that rises every day to tell us, hey, look up, I am here. It's a symbol of the divine. Sun is a symbol of the supermind. It's a symbol of the divine, which rises up every day, because it has to rise up every day. Why every day? Because it has to match the pull of the inconscient. Stronger the pull of the inconscient, stronger the kind of a descent of the divine force from above. So the sun is a reminder. Nowadays, the lives we live, it's no more a reminder, because it's just the mechanical process that I am following. So बेचारा आता है रोज, उषा काल होता है, चिड़ियां चहचहाती हैं, सुंदर सुंदर आवाजें आती हैं, and it fades away in the backlight, because we are not ready yet. So dawn, the sunrise, and the beauty that is associated with the dawn and sunrise and sunset, this is all a reminder, so that we can look up and we know that there is something higher, a possibility that awaits me than these patterns that rule me. So this is ending here, and long to reach its end in vacant knot. So it's getting back. So there is something in me which is awake, but it's not completely awake. It's getting pulled and pulled again into that darkness. So I would like just one of you, maybe I will take this paragraph last, and then we can settle down for the day. As in the dark beginnings of all things, until this somnambulistic world. Anyone still awake?
I can go. I have some background noise though.
Okay, Taru.
As in a dark beginning of all things, a mute, featureless semblance of the unknown, repeating forever the unconscious act, prolonging forever the unseeing will, cradled the cosmic drowse of ignorant force, whose moved creative slumber kindles the suns and carries our lives in its somnambulist whirl.
Thank you, Taru. So before this, I reminded myself to share with you one beautiful poem, with some of you maybe I have shared. Um, it's called God's Labor by Sri Aurobindo. I'm sharing it on the screen so that you all can see a few lines from that poem which I wanted to share with you. Beautiful poem, you all must read it. So, uh, yes, this is what I wanted you to share with you. All that was found must again be sought. Each enemy slain revives. Each battle forever is fought and refought through vistas of fruitless lives. So, this is very much related to our origins in the darkness, origins in the unconscious patterns, origin in a mechanical form of life, a routine form of life. And that is why it is said, all that was found. So, if I have found a light in my life, I cannot settle there. I cannot say, okay, I'm relaxing now on my couch. I have found the light in my life. Not at all. The pull of the darkness is so strong. I have to be on guard. So it is said, all that was found must again be sought. So that light that came into my life, it is not there to say permanently. Why? Because the darkness is waiting around the corner, lurking around the corner. So I have to be ready to find that light again and again in my life, even through the wheels of darkness. That is the spirit that is needed for this divine adventure. Each enemy slain revives. So I think that I have killed my judgmental capacity. I think that now I am not running according to my patterns. What happens? I catch another pattern in my life. Now I call it a spiritual pattern. And I'm very happy about it. But it's still a pattern. The kind of a hold of this pattern tendencies is so strong that one cannot be relaxed, in the sense, one has to be on guard. But I tell you, having said that, I think it's a beautiful adventure, this being on guard. It's a beautiful adventure. Why? Because you get to know about your own darknesses, which you have the power to transform. I mean, what a beauty of life would be when there is no challenge in front of me. All is well, all is good. So too much of light, everything is goody goody. So this challenge is the very, and why do we love adventures? Why do we, love these kind of challenges in life in some form or the other? Some may love physical adventures, some may love mental adventures, but we do love adventures. We have a tendency of loving adventures. Why? Because we plunged ourselves into this darkness only for the divine adventure. And that is the beauty of this divine adventure. The more you hold on to the light, you seek light again and again, no matter how much of darkness you are flooded with. Just look at the joy that life reveals to you. And this joy is not dependent on any external, gift, if I can say. No external person is required to behave in such or such way. No external job or happening or relationship has to go in such or such way. You know, you are ready for everything. This is what a warrior is, even referring to Kabir's warrior, because you need a warrior spirit in you. And why do we say that suicide is anti-divine in nature? Because we are slaying that warrior spirit, which is our origin. I said, yes, I want to go down this humongous slide because I want to do this adventure. I know that there will be troubles on the way, but I'm ready for it because I know my origins are divine. That kind of a faith. So no matter how many fruitless lives I have to go through, I will be refighting these battles again and again. Look at beautiful poem, you must go through this poem when you are alone. My gaping wounds are 1,001, and the Titan kings assail, so referring to the Asuras. But I cannot rest till my task is done and wrought the eternal will. Beautiful, it's really beautiful. I'm sure there must be other lines also worth going through. We can maybe one day just pick up this poem and go through it again. So this is what Sri Aurobindo did for us, by Savitri, by the Divine Mother. I had hoped build a rainbow bridge, the bridge connecting the soil and the sky, marrying the soil to the sky. And so in this dancing planet midge, the moods of infinity. And it really amazes me that all the work of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother is actually a synthesis of yoga. If you look at Life Divine, if you look at synthesis of yoga, he has given us, he has never rejected any theory. This is the beauty of Sri Aurobindo, because divine is full of infinite possibilities. So if I may be appearing that my viewpoint is different from yours, it may be just an appearance. And he has given us the opportunity that yes, if we sit together, we can actually bring all those viewpoints together and synthesize something new, which is aiming actually at the thing that we all are aiming at by those viewpoints. So this is what Sri Aurobindo has done. And Mother has also said, when in on education she speaks, that whenever there is a small exercise, I think we did that in our sessions Monday in the pain and suffering course, that choose something which is opposite to each other. Like God is ruthless, so I have a strong belief that God is ruthless, and you have a strong belief that God is kind. And you can see, once you start discussing and arguing this point, you will see that both of them merge, and we both are coming only from the same origin. So that is where dualities of darkness and light, and life and death, and suffering and bliss, they all merge into each other. And then what will you ask from the divine when dualities merge? You will not be asking, oh, give me only bliss and not suffering, because you know that if I'm presented with suffering, it's even leading me to a greater bliss. So why to be afraid of death? Even why to be afraid of uh, you know falsehood? Even if you encounter falsehood in life through people, why to be afraid of it? If you have the power, transform it with your love. If not, leave it aside. It will take its own time, course of nature's own time. I think I've said enough, too much of a talk for today. Yeah, I think I won't be taking this last paragraph because we have enough material for now to chew upon. Although, although there's something which I shared with you. Uh, I think I shared a snapshot of this from Canto Book 7, Canto 5, where it is told, there is a small portion which, Shreya, have you been through the messages on shared on the group, where I shared she is present in us no bigger than the thumb of the man? Have you been through that? No, okay, then let me find it for you and then we can read it and we can end there. So if you can see my screen, starting from here, we will go down. Yeah, mortal shape here. So Shreya, if you can go through it, and then I can just pinpoint why I want you to read it and focus on it. Go through the underlined stuff. Oh, Simiji has not read. Simiji, would you like to read it? Simi? Okay, Shreya, then maybe you can go ahead.
Do you want me to read
Can
it
you hear
out
me?
aloud?
Yeah.
I heard another voice. I think maybe
I
Simiji
Okay,
is
Simi
away.
is here. Okay. Then maybe Simi can.
let her read. Monica, doesn't matter. Let her read.
अच्छा मैं ऐसा करती हूँ मैं हाफ हाफ कर देती हूँ
No, it
ठीक है
doesn't matter. Let her read. Let
no
her
I
read.
want you to read so, uh,
Okay.
okay a little bit you read and half Shreya can read okay
Okay.
like
Okay.
part
Okay.
then just a second let me highlight it for you yeah until here supporting the actor in human scene that is the last line that you can go through starting
Starting
from
from
but since yeah
oh, okay. Okay. But since she knows the toil of mine in life, as a mother feels and shares her children's lives, she puts forth a small portion of herself, a being no bigger than the thumb of man, into a hidden region of the heart, to face the pang and to forget the bliss, to share the suffering and endure earth's wounds, and labor mid the labor of the stars. This in us laughs and weeps, suffers the stroke, exults in victory, struggles for the crown. You want me to go further?
further until the supporting actor in the human scene
Identified with the mind and body of life, it takes on itself their anguish and defeat, bleeds with fate's whips and hangs upon the cross, yet is the unwounded and immortal self, supporting the actor in the human scene.
yeah beautiful thank you so much
Thank you, my pleasure.
so this is referring to the divine mother who is here to help us who is Satyavan and she's not away from us she's there right there with us the only thing is that our attention at the moment is always outside all the external happenings or all the shallow surface happenings the moment I turn within the moment I say okay now I am ready I've seen the world enough and now I want to see if there is anything else than this mechanical routine then only we are ready to receive the light of the mother because otherwise if someone gives me the light of the mother and I'm not even ready first of all I'll not be able to value it secondly I'll be kind of the it'll burn me the light will burn me the joy of receiving the divine mother the knowledge the bliss that arrives with the divine mother it will not let me live it will be too much for me as a person to hold so we have to slowly become ready to receive. The more I keep on emptying myself of the contents which I have kind of laden myself with, burdened myself with, the more I see that in that space I feel a presence if I want to. सबसे पहले आता है विश्वास. कबीर कहते हैं मोह को कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो हूँ विश्वास में. Just like we have so much of faith in the mechanical routines of life, if I turn that around towards the mother now, then a new life can begin. And this, we'll go through this passage again once we come to this book. It's a long far game for now, but I wanted you to read this because this is referring to the psychic being or the soul present within us, which is the part portion conscious of human of the divine presence. It has been left in the matter so that one can rise up to it, one can wake up to it. And this is what has been said by mystics all around the world. Jag, jag, be, wake up to yourself. What is it that they're asking us to wake up to? This is what they're asking us to wake up to our own divine potential, which we are hardly aware of. Okay. So Shreya, I would like you to read a rest of it, starting from here on the screen. Through this, she sends her glory and her powers.
I had a question to ask before.
Bolo.
Why are we being asked to forget the bliss?
Okay. So, what will happen if from the beginning itself, you know that you are divine? How will the adventure begin? See, adventure में कब मजा आता है? When I have a rough idea of the terrain, maybe not even a rough idea, and I am pushing myself into a new terrain, maybe a new valley that I want to discover. Now, what is an adventure? An adventure begins when I rest in my forgetfulness. When I know that I don't know, but I will discover. So the divine enjoys itself through discovery. समझ रहे हो? So first, what it does is it forgets, and then it finds again. This is the joy, Otherwise, सिर्फ एक ही इंसान है, सिर्फ ब्रह्म ही ब्रह्म है हर जगह. वो ढूंढेगा किसको? और मिलेगा
I see that, but a child also enjoys, na? Matlab a toddler, for example, he or she is happily exploring around and is very much connected with the bliss, and the bliss actually fills him or her up so much that there is just say confidence, trust, security, all of that, and he or she rides on that and explores.
Shreya, have you seen a very, very little infant, like who has just been, kind of started moving or maybe moving heads and legs and maybe hands, है ना? नया नया जैसे होता है ना? She now looks at the human figures and becomes very, very delighted. Now, there is a difference between a child who is 7, 8 year old and a very little infant like that who is maybe say 4 to 5 months old. What is the difference?
Well, the 7-year-old child has learned how to perhaps manipulate people a little bit.
Okay. What else? Related with adventure, the joy of adventure.
The 7-year-old maybe perhaps has more can do and cannot do. Fears have probably started settling in.
And
But for a newborn,
months?
Yeah, for a newborn, I would imagine that it's a clean slate.
And what is happening going to that clean slate?
I don't think I quite understand what is happening.
हाँ, चलो मैं बताती हूँ. What I'm hinting at. अगर बहुत ध्यान से, क्योंकि मेरे तो 2 बच्चे हैं, तो I have at least have some experience of this wonder of existence that they have in their eyes. So when I saw Anand at one point of time when he was maybe 6, 7 months old, I saw him taking a shower, and like he's putting his fingers under the shower and he's watching the water droplets fall over that, on the fingers, and feel the touch, and he's doing like as if he's seeing it for the first time. Now imagine I am having all the memory of the touch, that things that I touched, all the things that I experienced. Will I be able to experience this wonder? Now if I look at Anand, Anand is no different than Brahm. Anand is Brahm enjoying itself through Anand, right? So the divine has hidden himself now, and in his own forgetfulness, very, very carefully. He has done it very carefully. Because if this forgetfulness is not here, how will he be able to experience this joy of having water on the fingers for the very first time? This joy of being is the delight of existence. Sat Chit Anand. And that is why we suffer if joy is absent from our lives. So this is how the creation has been manifested. It is manifested in the name of joy. It was only for joy that the divine wanted to experience कि भैया pang of separation क्या होता है, क्योंकि जब तक pang of separation नहीं पता लगेगा, how would I experience joy of union? I mean, look at these times which are going on right now. If we friends, I talk to Taru many times, and we used to take the walks and the cups of teas for granted, and now we are not able to have those talks or cups of tea or the walks together. Now the separation brings a new aspect of enjoying each other. So this forgetfulness is there for a very, very special reason, so that you are free, you are a clean slate, totally conscious now. As you become old enough, become more conscious how I want to experience this life. And that is why they say the moment you change your mind, the world changes. It's a kind of a glass, a goggles, eye sunglasses that you're wearing. So change the sunglasses, the world changes. That is what they say in kind of a shallow term. And that is the bliss. Because if Shreya remembers all the past lives, what a burden she would be carrying right now. She would not be able to enjoy everything, because all the past experiences will be sticking to her. So just to enjoy that forgetfulness, so that I can experience everything anew, the touch of a skin anew, the touch of a small baby, the smell of a small baby anew, and then slowly, slowly, slowly also get awakened to the divine in me anew, in a new way. That is the beauty of forgetfulness. I don't know if it's kind of
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So shall I read from?
बिल्कुल.
Okay. Okay. I think you need to put your phone, laptop on charging.
On charge. Yes. Thank you so much for recognizing that. Yeah, I did.
Through this, she sends us her glory and her powers, pushes to wisdom's heights through misery's gulfs. She gives us strength to do our daily task and sympathy that partakes of others' grief. And the little strength we have to help our race, we who must fill the role of the universe, acting itself out in a slight human shape, and on our shoulders carry the struggling world. This is in us the Godhead small and marred. In this human portion of divinity, she sits the greatness of the soul in time. She seats the greatness of the soul in time. To uplift from light to light, from power to power, till on a heavenly peak it stands, a king. In body weak, in its heart an invincible might, it climbs stumbling, held up by an unseen hand, a toiling spirit in a mortal shape.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. So this is what, this is what we are aiming at, what Mother and Sri Aurobindo aimed at, a new race has to become, a new creation has to come. And that can come only if we leave the darkness and resistance in the being that, the first few lines where it says, lay stretched, immobile, the foreboding mind of night alone. So what is that? That is us, a potpourri of tendencies and patterns, not ready to leave the space and not ready to let the divine adventure begin. The night is me. All the patterns that run me, because right at now, at the moment, I am full of patterns and tendencies and subconscious wants and desires and attachment. And that is what is not ready to move. So I am lying stretched across the path of the divine event. The humongous flow of the divinity is ready to barge in. But I am saying, hey, I am not I am not going to let you put the tent here. No way, because I have been ruling this space. So don't think that night is some other night. It's us, it's our resistance, it's our tamas, it's our inertia, which does not let us be absent actually from the divine scene. We have, if I can say in another parallel terms, we have nothing to do here. It's only the divine manifesting itself through these forms and doing its adventure. On the other hand, I can also say that it's only our responsibility that we get out of the way and collaborate as well in letting that divine light flow through all these instruments of the mind, the vital, the body, because that is the divine event that has to take place. What I am doing is I am not ready to move. This is tamas, this is inertia. I am saying, जब तक मेरी डिजायर्स नहीं पूरी होंगी भैया, मैं तो ना हिल रहा यहाँ से. तुम कर लो जो डिवाइन इवेंट करनी है. किसी का लॉस नहीं है वो, because there is no other. It's nobody's loss, it's the divine's loss, if one can say. And that is why if you read this poem, The God's Labor, it's the divine sorrow, कि ये कर क्या सकते हैं और करने क्या लग गए, that kind of a sorrow, the pain of the divine heart. And look at just how, what a pain, for example, Mother and Sri Aurobindo had to go through. And Mother says that Sri Aurobindo had to leave body because the man is not ready yet for the light that he's going to dawn upon. And then that's why he had to kind of leave the body and do the work from the other realms. They're still doing the work. They have left supramental light on the earth. And it's no wonder that more and more of us are waking up to ourselves. No wonder. It's no wonder. It's the light of the mother that has been left, which is doing its work. Because now, if we don't collaborate, nature will sweep us away. Look at the global crisis. We have not been collaborating. Nature will sweep us away and a new race has to come. The only thing is, भैया जाते जाते या तो शहीद की तरह जाओ, या तो जाते जाते विरोधी पार्टी की तरह जाओ. So that's up to us. So I think for now, for today, we have overshooted our time also and discussed enough. I would like you to request all of you to, be there with Savitri, read these lines again and again. Maybe something new dawns upon related to your life, some new insight, some new clarity. Write these lines if possible when you are alone in silences. It's beautiful to write these lines. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thanks for joining. Any concluding remarks for anyone? Thank you.